music universe in the world has now shifted and corrected itself. Metallica have a new record out, and based on sales, I think in Canada this week, you beat Bruno Mars and Miranda Lambert. Thank you for that.
We do what we can. Thank you. Certainly, both are fine artists who I respect tremendously. Sure. But listen, somebody told me yesterday, I guess it's our sixth straight number one or something. The statistics get a little blurry after a while, but it's awesome that, in 2016 people still care about Metallica, and I think even more awesome that people still care about hard rock and heavy music, and there's still a lot of fans out there that are ready to embrace, hard rock releases when they come out. So the fact that we have a number one album pretty much quote unquote all over the world is a pretty cool thing. So we're psyched.
So I know that much of the talk it's been 8 years since the last record, but I really want to know, and you guys have been busy. There have been tours, there's been a movie, there's been the Orion festivals, there's an album with Lou Reed and all the rest. I guess my question is, what was the trigger? What was the point in which you said, hey, it's time to do a Metallica record?
It's really simple. You sort of, we're very curious by nature, and we love to immerse ourselves in many different things. So you go out and you tour for 3 years, you have a great year with Lou Reed, you do movies and you do all these different things, but sooner or later, obviously, you always come back to home. You come back to your core values, to your core things. So we go and do all these things out of curiosity, but writing songs, making records, obviously is the core element of what Metallica does. And so, it took a little longer this time, but there was no sort of cosmic reason or no, major issues or anything like that. We just had Metallica's busier than it's been for, the last year that we had a full shutdown of the whole machinery was in 2005. And since then, it's been 11 years and we've been going more or less nonstop. And so in between, like you said, movies and Lou Reed's and Orion festivals and all this other stuff, it was time to make another record, write songs, and we were ready to go.
Some people have said that Hardwired to Self-Destruct picks up where Death Magnetic left off 8 years ago. Is that a fair assessment?
It's not an unfair assessment. Okay. I mean, it's hard for me. I've been doing interviews now for 6 weeks about this record. Everybody's got an opinion. It sounds like this. It kind of does this. It's like, I think all those are completely valid. Okay. I don't feel that it's my place to sit and sort of dictate how people should interpret this record. Certainly, I can tell you that Death Magnetic is probably the Metallica record that's lasted the longest for me. There's what I call a honeymoon period, where after you finish making a record and you're kind of gloating along on the high of it all, and then one day you're listening to you hear a song on the radio, or you're watching a video or something, and you go, sounds odd, or what were we thinking right there, or whatever. But with Death Magnetic, that almost didn't come. Death Magnetic sounded like the best piece of work that we'd ever done for basically all the years till we started this. So picking up where Death Magnetic left off was, I think, a very natural, organic continuation of those years. And we also put a lot of before Death Magnetic, Rick Rubin was involved in that, and really there was we talked a lot about who we were and about our identity and trying to figure out sort of where we were taking Metallica and all this type of stuff. So after Death Magnetic, it felt like we had enough talks and enough meetings to last a few records. So with this one, we just picked up about a year and a half ago, I guess. We just started writing and just jumped right into it, sort of riding the same wave that Death Magnetic had produced.
I hear a lot of your old music in this record. I've heard this from a number of people. Like, when I hear Spit It Out, I hear Metal Militia. And, when I hear Atlas Rise, I hear Master of Puppets. All those sounds, are they hardwired into your DNA? It seems to become natural, right? Or is it?
I think that's a very valid and fair statement. There's only so many chords on a guitar, and there's only so many drum beats, and sooner or later, they all they're all part of sort of the same food groups or whatever. So it's there's obviously the one, I mean, talking about Death Magnetic like we did before. Rick was very encouraging of us being comfortable with our past, and even encouraging us to sort of go back and it's okay to be inspired by your past work, your past records. We, I think, went through a pretty long period where we refused to look back and only looked into the future, and went kind of a little creatively crazy a couple times. But Rick said, embrace your past, be inspired by your past. And so obviously Master Puppets and, like you say, Metal Militias and so on, all part of our DNA. So it's part of what we're doing now.
Your legacy is something that is got to be both a blessing and a curse for you, I'm sure, sometimes. It kind of bothers me that, and I deal with a lot of fans as you do, is that when a new record comes out, it's always compared to what you did in the past. And how do you resolve that? Do you care? Or do you just
I don't feel that I need to resolve it. I think that obviously in 2016, everybody's got an opinion, and that's part and parcel of what goes on now, and it's fine. When you've been around 35 years and we've had obviously a lot of ups, but also a few downs, we've taken a few hits over the years, and we're pretty thick-skinned, and I have the ability, for better or worse, to compartmentalize almost anything. So I've kind of, on this record and this whole process in the last couple of months, I'm very happy. Obviously, there's a great buzz on this record. The critics, the fans alike are really appreciative of this record. But I've learned to sort of, it goes in, it goes out. I don't hold on to any of it. And if people, the thing that, in the new communication age of everything has to be boiled down to like a soundbite. The new Metallica record sounds like, ta-da!
Yeah.
It's like, how about it just sounds like the new Metallica record? I sort of look into the future, but I appreciate the fact that people want to put a tag on it or brand it, and it's fine. It's part, and it's also what you guys do, and I don't mind it. I don't feel it's my place to either, agree or disagree with it. Whatever you call it, it's fine. There's no right or wrong way to listen to a Metallica record, and there's no right or wrong way to digest it, and there's no right or wrong way to talk about it,
There is no end to the amount of video that you guys have offered to fans. There's everything. And for me, because I am interested in the craft of making music, I love your making of videos.
Thank you.
It's an interesting process. We don't see the whole picture, obviously. We see 20 minutes of the making of a song. But
the poor editor guy, I mean, he's literally got I think he told me he has 10,000 hours worth of material. What are there, 2 cameras on us right now?
Yeah.
When we're in that building, I think there's 6 or 7 cameras that are just running continuously all over the building. I mean, literally continuously, like CCTV, basically, okay? And somebody, the poor guy named Clark Eddy, has taken on, he must have done something wrong in a past life, because he's been sitting there for the better part of the last year trying to sort through some of this so you and me and everybody else can have a sort of 10 to 20 minute version of the making of some of these songs.
Sure.
Poor guy, but he's done a hell of a job, and it's we're very proud and psyched to share all those videos with everybody, to give it just a little glimpse of what goes on.
The songwriting process for you guys through all your years, for the most part, has been started with you and James in riff tapes. Yet when I watch the songwriting process take place, it's a meticulous process for you. You guys examine every bar, every accent.
That we do, yes.
And I admire that. Where does the spontaneity come in? Is that something
it comes when Lou Reed shows up at the studio. That's when things take a different turn, and starts yelling at us for wanting to do more than one take. So I guess in some perverse way, that is why we go do some of these other projects, because making records for us, as you can tell, is a very, very anal retentive, meticulous, kind of a thing, and it's I'm not going to sit here and it's our craft, and but it's sort of, this is what we do, and obviously we take it seriously, and we want to make the best record. We've never been the kind of band that has been, let's capture a moment and, just kind of share that with the world. But we got very close to that with that awesome time we spent with Lou Reed. But you're right, and certainly what you get out of those making of videos is that there is a lot of time and effort that goes into the stuff.
James brings in lyrical ideas to these songs. I'm sure everybody has a contribution here, but those ideas, do they come in before the record is done, or are they formed?
No, it's always the last element.
Really?
Yeah. Occasionally we'll sit and talk about, here's an idea. How about, if this happens to a person, if you're in this kind of situation, over like lunch down at the studio or something. But each record obviously is different from each other, and the process is different. This record, Hardwired, he was a little more kind of off in his own world. Death Magnetic I was a little more involved in some of that stuff, the lyrics and the vocal ideas and stuff on Death Magnetic. But on this record, he went off into the deepest, darkest corners of James Hetfield world and kind of did it all himself. And most of the time, I never heard the vocals. They were sort of works in progress, and you hear some stuff as the songs were being written in terms of the melodies, but the words are always last. When I mean last, they're really last. It's like the song's ready to be mixed, and just got to re-sing something, and then it'll go to mix. So it's always the last thing with the words, and he's tweaking it. But this record, certainly more so than say the last one, was just him. I heard most of it. It was being mixed. Like, okay, cool.
When you came to Murder One, the tribute to Lemmy,
yes,
it's interesting. You've covered Motorhead many times.
That we have.
But when it came to this song, it doesn't sound like a Motorhead song, which
a few people have said that. Yeah.
I kind of expected that, and yet, is that a deliberate intent?
No. Again, there's very little stuff in our world where, okay, roundtable meeting, let's sit down. Okay, we're going to do a thing for Lemmy, we're going to do this, so should the music be, there's not discussions at that level. We had a piece of music, and James came back, and basically I've written some words about Lemmy. It's like, okay, cool. I had never, what are we, I don't know, 150 songs into this, 120 maybe. He's never done that before. I was a little like, wow, okay. And then, sort of looked at it, and obviously there's some Motorhead references in the lyrics, which I think are really cool. There were one or two things that were changed around a little bit. But basically it was like, that's just really cool. And he was so passionate about it that it was awesome to see. I'd never expected him to, because most of his lyrics, and I think this is the greatness of James Hetfield, most of his lyrics are very, what's the word, like ambiguous or very sort of evasive. You can sort of take them and you can formulate them into whatever you want, and it's like everybody can kind of derive out of them, what works for you. But these are among the most direct lyrics he's ever written, and that took me a second to kind of wrap my head around, but I think it's beautiful, and I think a lot of the fans are really appreciative of throwing that tribute Lemmy's way.
Hardwired to Self-Destruct is a beast of a record. It's a beast. When do you know it's time to stop? When do you know when it's time to stop? It's like
beast mode showed up. It was like, okay, the beast has been recorded. Well, honestly, that is one of the downsides of making a record at home. It was very important for us to make this record at home in the 415. Just dinner conversation last night, one down from the 416 and the 415. And so we hadn't made a record at home for a long time, and we have our own studio and our whole own setup. So obviously making a record at home takes a little longer, because the main reason we're home is because we want to be with the family and so on and so on. But, since there's nobody coming into the studio on, 2 Mondays from now. I mean, there's no real stop or deadline in front of you. I took the record home. It was I think it was a weekend in May, and I came back and I said to Greg and James, I said, I don't think we have an opening track. And so we sat down and we wrote Hardwired, the track, in like 2 days and recorded it maybe on Wednesday or Thursday of that week. I mean, boom, Kirk and Rob weren't even there. And then we had the opening track and felt this was the right way to lead into this record. And that's when we knew the record was done.
I sense this is a really good time for you guys. You talked about your conversation with Rick Rubin a while back in dealing with who your identity is and who you guys are. Does this allow you to self-produce your own record? Does it feel like, there's no outside force here? You guys are really kind of running the ship?
I mean, obviously, this is the first record we put out exclusively on Blackened Records, which is our own label, something we worked for many years towards. Metallica thrives when Metallica is autonomous and sort of left alone in its own little bubble. We just love to be in our own world and kind of do our own thing. It's a great time for Metallica. Thanks for asking. The meltdown years of Some Kind of Monster stuff, all that, is 12, 13 years by. We have a great internal balance and chemistry and dynamic that works well with every, being in a band, like we talked about before we started. I mean, it doesn't get any easier as you get older. And, that's why there's a lot of bands full of young cats. And, then people become solo artists for a reason, because when you're in a band, you have to compromise. You have to be respectful to other people's needs and their agendas and their timelines. And it's not easy. So we sort of post, Some Kind of Monster meltdowns, have a new balance internally. And we sort of have learned to listen to each other and be respectful of other people's needs and all that stuff that you laugh at when you're 20 years old. But for a bunch of dudes in their early 50s, we found a way to make it work. And then putting this record out and sharing it with the world and getting the feedback be so positive is awesome. And number ones and all this stuff. So it's absolutely a good time to be in Metallica.
Speaking about feedback, did you play this album for your dad? And what did he say?
I played him the first 2 songs a couple of months back, and he dug it, was very into it, thought it sounded very much like Metallica. And then I had the office send it over to him a couple of weeks ago, and I just came back from running around in Europe last week, and I saw him for Thanksgiving dinner, and he, unprovoked, started talking to me about how awesome the record was, and I got more positive vibes out of him than I have on any Metallica record for quite some time. And he got it on CD, and he asked if he could also. He's 88 years old. He's got an iPod now, and he asked if he could have it in digital form. So I'll take that as a good sign. The days of delete that are, I think, at least on this record, they're kind of over.
We talked about age has got to be creeping in with you guys, and I watched you guys perform a workout last night. Does it get any easier?
It does not, like we said. I mean, I was explaining to somebody, everything's a process now. It's like, we got to do a sound check. It's like, okay, before I got a sound check, I got to get my arm like warmed up, and I got to sit there. There's a guy named Jeff who rubs like some really nasty smelling like massage oil into my arm. I mean, it's 15 minutes of that, and then, I mean, everything's just a grind now with this stuff because we got to respect the bodies, and if we're going to put ourselves through those type of workouts, we got to be respectful to all that. So we do what we can. We have a couple guys that travel with us and that stretches and massages and stitch us back together after the shows. Glue us back together, and body parts are flying all over the place. But it's We're hanging in there, and we're keeping ourselves as healthy as we can.
You look healthy. You guys look great. It sounds like
thank you.
Metallica travels around like a sports team do. You guys are
Unfortunately, yes. It's I've used that analogy myself a couple times. It's dangerously close to a sports team. Yeah, it's kind of pathetic. And people, people come and write stuff. It's like they come backstage and they expect bottles of Jack Daniels and it's like nasty protein shakes and all kinds of vegetarian crazy things. I mean, it's we've had our rock and roll years, trust me, and we lived it and we burned the candle at all three ends. It was a lot of fun, but nowadays we're being respectful to the physical needs.
I'm not a musician, but you guys make it look effortless. Is it? It's got to be hard playing Metallica music. It blazes. A 2-hour show will crush any other band.
Well, thank you.
How is it? How is it for you guys playing that stuff? Like, do you take a look? You come to a song like "Creeping Death" and you go, "Oh, here we go,"
I mean, across a set, there are certain songs that are just embedded in you to the point of just they're so. I mean, I wouldn't say you're on an autopilot, but you can kind of immerse yourself in it. Almost. You stop thinking, and it just becomes like a physical thing.
Muscle memory.
Obviously, yeah, muscle memories, like a Creeping Death. But then the new songs, I mean, you still gotta. Okay, what's the next part, and all